Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. There is a lot of tension. As we have listed in the title this evening, it is the calm before the storm. And it is looking like that things are gearing up now for a major showdown in the Middle East, and not looking good at all, friends. We have just a whirlwind of information I want to share with you tonight. We'll look at this as well from a prophetic standpoint. But Russia has been moving in the S-300 system. That's not what you're seeing here on your screen here, but they have been moving in the S-300 system into Syria on a daily basis now. One major aircraft after another landing in Latvia there, getting the S-300 system set up. That is a red line for Israel. And of course, Russia saying they need this system there in order to protect their own planes from being shot down when Israel is trying to conduct their strikes inside the country. But at the same time, if the S-300 system is being set up inside of Syria, is the Syrian government going to have full access to this system? And as a result, will they be targeting Israeli planes and have a much better chance of downing Israeli planes? It's not a good situation no matter which way you look at it. There's a lot of opinions being expressed out there, and we're going to be examining some of the issues here and sharing that with you. First up here, Russia ramps up the anti-Israel measures in Syria for possible war of attrition, according to Debka File here that's put out the article today. And that just kind of gets things kicked off here on the things that are happening. Then we can go to RT. And we can also see, even though this article here is about Iran releases footage of U.S. carrier chased by Iranian speedboats in the Hormuz Strait in March, it also lets us know that even though this is from March, it gives us an idea of just the size of fleet the U.S. has there in the Persian Gulf. Russia has noted when they started their Vostok drills, especially the ones in the Mediterranean there, that the U.S. did have a sizable aircraft fleet there in the Persian Gulf as well as the Mediterranean. They're very much within striking distance of Syria in the event that something goes down as far as a false flag chemical attack that President Trump has said would cause the U.S. to react in very strong terms. At the same time, though, we're seeing some very interesting things. This particular one came out on Twitter. Syrian situation, news media quiet. Israel is quiet. Iran is quiet. The U.S. is quiet. Intelligence agencies, major kinetic activity. Israel's planning big air campaign against Syria this upcoming week. S-300s are prepared for strikes. And that's what the intel is coming out of Israel about right now, that Israel is going to strike at these S-300 systems. If you remember a little while back over in Greece, Israel joined in with NATO on how to outmaneuver the S-300 system. Now, my biggest concern over this is that although I believe that Israel, along with NATO, possesses the power to be able to break the bars of Damascus, if you will, from a biblical standpoint, I also feel like that it would not be done without a loss of life on Israeli side. And this is where things could really begin to heat up. It might be one thing if one Israeli plane goes down as a result of the S-300 system, but if more than one Israeli plane is lost as a result of this new system here, that it's going to turn Syria into a powder keg. And I don't want to see that. I've really been trying to get my own people to wake up, those that are in power. You don't have to get the Israelis to wake up so much, but you have to get those that are in power, who are controlling the power in Israel, to remember that this is the very homeland of the mothers of Israel. And but yet that seems to fall on deaf ears right now, and you can kind of expect that. I mean, after all, Paul said that Israel would return blind. Yeshua said that they were blind. But then again, so are the Gentiles. According to Revelation, they're blind, naked, miserable, wretched, and don't even know it. They have so much money they don't even know what to do with, so they can't even see for the sake of all the money they're dealing with. That's a different note altogether, though. Moving on with the news here, the Jerusalem Post also reporting here on this article here. They always move their articles down, don't know why. Speaking about how that the The Syrian foreign minister had spoke about taking back the Golan Heights. It's a threat that he's been making. Israel, how seriously are they taking this threat? And the Syrian foreign minister talking about once they finish up with everything that's been going on, they plan on moving forward to take the Golan Heights. Now, we haven't heard President Bashar al-Assad make any comment of this nature here, but no doubt the foreign minister feeling emboldened by the fact of Russia's presence, moving the S-300 system into the country, which also lets me know too, if you look at this from more of what's really going on in the world, these two major superpowers, the United States and Russia, are really fighting it out over who's going to get control of the pipeline, the gas and oil pipeline that would come through Syria. And the United States, Israel, willing to fight it out as well because the port in Haifa, the Chinese have been working with the Israelis to make the port much bigger. That's kind of upset a few Israelis, as I know of, because they lost a lot of good jobs inside of Israel because they brought in Chinese workers to help make the port bigger for the tankers that would be coming in to get the crude oil from this pipeline. So Israel's there ready to fight. And because China is working with Israel on their port, I don't see China getting involved in this war, not even for a second. Now, of course, North Korea, if that issue begins to wind back up again, then you'll see China getting involved because that's their own backyard. But when it comes to the pipeline, China looks like they're going to be on the NATO side of this. So that's going to leave Russia all by themselves with Iran and, of course, whatever other little rogue groups are there to help defend Syria. That would be a major loss for Russia, because I don't see Russia being able to hold up a fight against the Western powers over this, and it's not going to go down easy. This is a Silk Road initiative, and that's one thing we have to always remember. It's not just a gas pipeline. It is the next biggest thing of what makes a country great again, as Donald Trump loves to say. And unfortunately, America's not going to be great again if we're dealing with a smoldering ash in the country as a result of a nuclear war, because Putin will result in a nuclear war if he feels like he's not going to win a ground battle. And I think the only reason he's putting in the S-300 system right now in Syria is to try to show that he really means business, that he has fought long and hard to help Bashar al-Assad retake this country, and he's not giving up on it. Moving into some other issues here, we can see Turkey as well. Turkey is very much on the side of NATO. Yeah, Erdogan may play like he's the big tough guy and NATO's the bad guy, but every time President Trump lobs a few of those missiles over into Syria, Erdogan is like a little cheerleader out there with his pom-poms jumping up and down, all excited about what just happened to Bashar al-Assad. And this latest deal over in Idlib was a win-win for the Turkish president. As you can see, this is some of the tanks he was trying to hide under tarps, bringing them into the Idlib province there. This is one reason why Putin backed down. He had to swallow a little bit of his pride because not only this, and I'll show you here this particular video footage here from Press TV. This was another convoy of the Turkish military moving in tanks into Idlib there. They're letting Russia know, we mean business. You're not going to bomb Idlib without a fight. Because Turkey wants part of Syria. And that was what the plan was long years ago. It was planned that Israel and Turkey would divide up Syria, and that would be the outcome at the end of the day. So Turkey has already kind of embedded their own troops there in the region, and it just goes to show they're getting ready for a showdown themselves. Moving on to another click on here too from the Debka file. Russian expert says new electronic warfare system in Syria can track planes in Israel. This is really part of a larger system that Russia has put into the country there. It's already in place. It is an electronic warfare system that allows them to jam things of other militaries as well. but it also has been put there because Russia is concerned about all their ships that they have in the Mediterranean. Now, the last we had checked, there were 25 ships in the Mediterranean by Russia. That number may have dropped down some since the Vostok drills have come to a close, but still, I would estimate some dozen ships that they have there in the region as these tensions continue to build up between NATO, Israel, Syria, and Russia. And of course, Iran, not forgetting that Iran is also a problem. This here is the Latkia Air Base, and this is from Avi Sharf, who's put up some flight patterns there of Russia flying in. And these are these big cargoes planes that Russia has, much like our C-130s. Now I'm going to show you an older photograph of this because he says Syria in 3 days, RA-82032 inbound via Iran, Iraq, just now from North Russia, also RA-82010 will probably arrive tomorrow, and they're carrying the S-300 system. But back in 2015, this is the S-400 system coming in on these cargo planes that he's talking about on here. And of course, they can get one per plane, and they've been doing this for several days now, one plane after another after another. So it is without question, Russia is definitely meaning business about what it's bringing into the country there to help the Syrian government out. And I think it's more so a show of force and, of course, a show of sincerity that Russia does mean business and that they do want this country to stay in Bashar al-Assad's hands. But NATO is not going to play around either. And I will say one thing. This is from my own sources on the ground inside of Israel there. Israel is not bluffing. Israel will strike. We might get a little bluff from President Trump. You might get a little bluff from Putin, but you're not going to get a bluff from Israel. And Israel is just much, I don't know what you want to call it, whether it's man enough or crazy enough to start launching attacks inside of Syria. And it's really sad because at the end of the day, the Syrian people, the children, and the children of Israel pay the price for these deadly exchanges that will be carried out. Moving on with this as well, and I want to just share something with you here in just 1 second. Let's cover a couple other issues here. Israel says ready for UN crossing with Syria to reopen. I think this is kind of an interesting thing that just came out. This came out today in Israel. It's actually October 1st over in Israel already, but Israel is talking about ready to open the UN crossing with Syria. This has been shut down for 4 years. And back when this first shut down, I did a news clip on this when it first happened, and the UN forces that were coming into Israel to get away from this war-torn region with ISIS and the different groups that were fighting the Syrian military there. And I believed it was used to be able to get UN peacekeepers inside of Israel. We'd never really had UN peacekeepers in Israel, and that put the UN forces inside of Israel. Now, we've had UN observers, things like that in Israel for a long time, but not the actual military aspect of it. And I believe that's always been the case there. Now Israel has opened up the door after 4 years, and I think the time is kind of interesting. And the reason why I say this is because we just mentioned that the foreign minister of Syria is threatening to take back the Golan. Is it a stall tactic? Maybe. Is it something there to try to make sure that Israel has showed the international community that they're trying to bring about the recognition of international law on the border there with the Golan and between that of Syria and Israel? Perhaps it could be a good gesture on Israel's part. I don't want to say it's a bad gesture because it is a good gesture in one way. But at the same time, I also think that this could be playing in for a stall of time as Israel gets ready to take out the S-300 system inside of Syria there. We also have Sputnik reporting that Israel might turn to U.S. for weapons as Syria gets Russia S-300, according to one expert there, that Israel may use this as a sort of arms race, a Cold War with Russia and Syria. Yeah, it's really tough because Putin has had a pretty good relationship with Israel, but you have to understand Putin is also having to deal with the families back home. 15 servicemen were killed, and they've lost a lot of other men inside of Syria over time. And the question is will Russia take care of their own, or will they continue to take a loss of life and not stand their own ground? And I think this is why Putin has had to cave under pressure himself, even though he's got a very close relationship with Prime Minister Putin and President Putin and Prime Minister Netanyahu. They have great relationship with each other, but yet at the same time, they both have to answer what goes on back at home. And so this is causing a very serious issue there. I want to share with you, though, when it comes to Prime Minister Netanyahu, this here is an audio clip. You don't get to see the face because we did the news broadcast on an audio recording with Siman Tov sometime back. I don't remember the actual date that we did this recording on, but on this particular excerpt right here, Siman Tov, who is an Israeli believer, I say believer, he believes Yeshua to be the Messiah. He was born in Israel. I guess Siman's got to be in his late 60s, mid 60s, something like that. And Siman is talking about his belief that Prime Minister Netanyahu is the man for the job. And when he's talking about the man for the job, that he would actually cause the war in the Middle East that will cause a reaction against Israel, that will cause 2/3 of the people of Israel to be killed in battle. Now, on this particular interview, Siman Tov had shared with me that God had revealed to him just earlier that Netanyahu was making the covenant with death and hell. Now, as he speaks about, well, I'll tell you what, let's let my good friend Siman Tov, love this brother here. Let me let you hear what he has to say here himself. I'll start playing it there, and maybe I can jump over and give you a little a picture of, well, can't give you the picture. Anyway, just listen into what he has to say here, please.
But he was as left-wing as he could ever be, but he hid himself behind a shield called right-wing. Netanyahu is doing it the exact same thing, but he's doing it with such eloquence that most people still don't see it. And the truth is, if you do the homework, you'll find that he has surrendered more land of Israel than any other leader in their history. And so the facts, to me, say a lot more than all the rhetoric that's being spoken. And that's when, is he going to ultimately be the one that is the architect that actually puts Israel in jeopardy? I believe he is. And it's not by accident. I'm convinced that he is God's man. You know, Nebuchadnezzar was also God's man. There are things that need to happen in this nation for this nation to turn back to him.
Wow.
God knows what they are.
Well, you know, that's interesting because, as Siman Tov was saying here, that Netanyahu is God's man, and he's talking about to bring the calamity upon Israel. We talked a lot even before and after the broadcast, and I'll kind of give you an idea. Siman Tov, well, you'll see him here in a few minutes in this interview here. We'll also be talking about the two-state solution that I've spoke about many, many times in the past. And I'll speak once again about this. I've spoken about this for years now, all the way back since the time of John Kerry working out the 9-month negotiations. I want to share that with you guys as well in just a moment. But at any rate, Siman Tov, not too long ago we had this interview with him speaking about just how bad things are going to get. He talks about how that he has surrendered more land than any other prime minister in the history of Israel. So when people think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is always doing great things for Israel, you know, I see a lot of bad things going on. And not to say there's not some good politicians in Israel. I believe that there is some good politicians there that would like to bring about good things for the Jewish state, for the Jewish people. But even Siman Tov, he's also been one of the ones that has said that when the first gay parade ever happened in Jerusalem, it was Netanyahu that brought it in, and he said the newspapers had written how that the sewer had busted open on the street called Hanavim, which is the street of the prophets, Rehov Hanavim, in Jerusalem, and raw sewage ran down the streets of Jerusalem. He said it was written in the newspaper that God must be trying to send a message of what was going on, what it was in the face of God to allow this to happen. And I'm not against, gay people. I'm not against gay people. That's not my purpose here. But the point is Jerusalem is to be the most holy city in the world. And we should treat it this way and not just openly throw things in the face of Almighty God, which, of course, in Revelation 11, we know the two witnesses, they're killed. Their bodies lay dead right there in the street of the great city, John says in Revelation, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Now there's been, 17 annual parades there? Thank you, Netanyahu. Appreciate that. Well, at least you can say one thing. As Simon Tov said, he's the man for the job. He's fulfilling biblical prophecy, just like Nebuchadnezzar did. Don't get me going on this one, guys. All right, let's move forward here. I also want to look at this from a biblical perspective, guys. It's a very serious situation. What do we have going on? And I've said it before. I want to say it again. And there's just no way around this. I don't know why biblical scholars have translated passage, Daniel chapter 11, verse 40, the way they did. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind. Like the king of the north is going to go attack Israel. And everybody wants to run around with their false prophecies and say, Russia's about to attack. And you know what? It kind of looks like that, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? All right, let's make some sense of this, though, guys. Come on, please. All right? All right, so at the time of the end, the king of the south, all right? Hebrews worded a little backwards here for you. Here's the king, Melech HaNagiv. It's the king of the Negev desert. The Negev desert is Judah. It is the southern part of Israel. That's what we call the Negev, right? So the king of the Negev desert, he's going to what? He's going to push Imo. All right? Itanagach Imo. Push not at him, not against him, with him. Im is with. You don't translate the word im against or at him. It is with him. So what is it? The king of the south, an Israeli leader, is pushing the king of the north to get a war started. He wants to get a war started. And when he does, what does it say that he'll do? Now, it also says here, now, Veishatar ter aliyav melech hatzifon berechevet. All right, and he shall go. The king of the north shall go over him with chariots and with horsemen, all right, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow as he passes through. Friends, I've been saying it over and over and over that this passage in Daniel 11:40 has nothing to do with Russia and Israel butting heads. This is Israel and NATO, and the king of the north is the Roman army. I mean, this is even written in the Apocrypha, that the world would end up being bankrupt because of the Roman soldiers. They wear out the money there. You know, what is it, the Apocalypse of Abraham or something? You know, and I can't say that this is an accurate book or anything. I read these things because I'm curious to see what ancient documentation is written out there. You know, look at it from a historical standpoint, if nothing else. But the point is in Hebrew, in our own canon, Daniel has clearly said that the king of the south, or the word is not even south, HaNagiv. All right, to begin with, the Negev desert. And when it says HaNagiv, that's Israel, friends. There is no other place on the planet. When you say HaNagiv, that is the Negev desert in Israel. No other desert in the world. So that is a king of the Negev desert in Israel, and that is an Israeli leader that is pushing with the king of the north to do what? He's going to come, and then the king of the north is going to come over him, and they're going to what? They're going to just take and decimate the Middle East. Baratzot, that's the key word right there. They're here. Uba Baratzot, okay, and he will come into the lands, plural. In other words, he's going to go in there, he's going to take out Syria, probably going to take out Lebanon, going to take out Iran. They're just going to wipe everything out as they go. That's what they're going to do. This is the whole plot and plan, friends. This is your prophecy. Make America great again. Yeah, with bombs. You know, listen, I know a lot of people out there, you guys, I know you love President Trump. Listen, he's a man like anybody else. And I really have always had high hopes that he would do well. You know, I really appreciated him. And I'm for anybody that wants to pray for the President of the United States. We should pray for our leaders. I'm not against that, guys. But I'm going to tell you something. I've already found out what's really going on. I already know things that you have no idea about that have never made the news yet that will make the news in the very near future. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've spent too many years in the intelligence community. I've seen too many things happen, and I've seen the Democrats and Republicans working together. I've seen, you know, and I know I didn't see this part because I wasn't alive back during, you know, Jack Kennedy's days when JFK was president of the United States. But I did work with a man that was under Dwight D. Eisenhower and was sent in to assassinate Castro. And I know how much he hated Kennedy because Kennedy decided to pull the plug on what was going on, the Bay of Pigs invasion down inside of Cuba. And I know that my own partner, I ended up being a partner with later in life. He's much older than I was, but I know that this man here, he had a hatred for Kennedy like you'd never even thought about because he's captured. He's captured and tortured by Castro. Him and Castro become great friends. Now, let me tell you something though. President Kennedy, that man was doing the most honorable thing this nation could have ever seen. He was giving us a debt-free currency. He was really angering those guys there. And I hate to say it, the Jewish bankers, the Rothschilds, were really getting a little bit peeved off with him because he was setting up an economic system that would have taken us out of poverty. That would have made the nation great again. I want to see President Trump take and walk his footsteps in Kennedy. Everybody wants to talk about Ronald Reagan like he was some great guy. Ronald Reagan was just as much involved in dope smuggling and the Iran-Contra affair. Yeah, they were getting the weapons, buying the weapons from the Iranians and giving them over to the Contras down there in Nicaragua to fight the war. And when I came along, I was just picking up right behind where they were leaving off with another set doing the exact same thing. My big mouth. To keep it shut right now. I apologize if it wasn't supposed to be saying much about that here. Anyway. I probably said more than what I should have. Let's get back to this. Anyway, if you want to know more of these things here, we're speaking about these things in these conferences that I'm doing there. So, but Kennedy was a very good man. Very good man. But they've been running those drugs, selling those weapons. And don't kid yourself, friends. It's even happening now. You think anything's changed? I've seen politicians, I'm talking about presidents, cover up cases where nobody could see anything about it again. That's right. Yeah, let's keep my mouth shut for now. Let's move on. Gideon Levy. Now this here, and many people probably don't like Gideon, but let me tell you something. He's a true Israeli. This man was born in Israel. He grew up there his whole life. Gideon Levy is truly a journalist, an amazing journalist. He wrote on here, "To Russia with Love." Now, I can't go that far to say "to Russia with love," okay? That's just a little bit much for me. But Gideon did write this. He said, "For the first time in years, another state is saying to Israel, stop right there, at least in Syria. That's the end of it." And he says, "Thank you, Mother Russia." I don't know if Gideon's family is from Russia as far as descendants. I think that Gideon actually is a Sephardic Jew, but I may be wrong on that. But anyway, it says, "A ray of hope is breaking through. Someone is setting limits on Israel. For the first time in years, another state is making it clear to Israel that there are restrictions to its power and that it's not okay for it to do whatever it wants. That it's not alone in the game, that America can't always cover for it, and that there's a limit to the harm it can do. Israel needed someone to get these limits, like it needed oxygen. The recent years, hubris and geopolitical reality enabled it to run rampant. It could patrol Lebanon's skies if they were its own, bombard in Syria's airspace as if it were Gaza's airspace, destroy Gaza periodically, put under endless siege, and continue, of course, to occupy the West Bank. Suddenly someone stood up and said, stop right there, at least in Syria. That's the end of it. Thank you, Mother Russia, for setting limits on a child whom no one has restrained for a long time. You know, now guys, let me tell you something. I love my people and I love my country, Israel, with all my heart. But like I've been saying recently, and I did the message the other day that I encourage you to go listen to if you haven't heard it, what side would you be on? The thing is, our nation is doing things to other people that is just not in line with the commandments that God gave Moses to our people. And there are Jewish people in Israel, plenty of them, like Gideon Levy. Gideon Levy's been in many interviews. In fact, Gideon Levy, the very man that wrote this article on Haaretz, is the very journalist that actually had met with the family and the young man that had his brains half blown out right after Miss Tamimi, the young lady that had been arrested for slapping the Israeli soldier around, when she was arrested and spent a year in prison. And I never will forget, I had one lady make a comment to me, and she said, Steve, she deserved to be arrested and serve the year in prison. And I think she was saying because she slapped the soldier around. Now, at the time when this comment was made to me, and I'm sure that the lady that made it, she didn't know either. And so I realized, you know, we say things out of passion because, yeah, I mean, you have to understand, I survived a suicide bombing attack in Israel. I used to hate Palestinians. I have to confess it. And God forgive me, and Palestinian people forgive me, because I realize that the Palestinians are being incited to violence and they're doing things that are wrong as well. Hamas I know is a terrorist organization, very bad thing for the Palestinian people. But at the same time, we can't expect to ever have peace unless unless Israel truly becomes the light of the nations. And we can't light up the world with bombs. We have to light up the world with love and with understanding and peace. Well, in the case of Tamimi, this young girl that was put in jail for a year, what I didn't know, that this man here, Gideon Levy, who actually writes the article right here, he had actually went and met with her cousin that had just been shot by Israeli police or soldiers no more than 30 minutes before she smacked the soldier around. She was so angry because the little boy, he survived it, but his whole skull was ripped off. If you see the picture, I've shown it before, it's just totally dropped in. Well, the Israeli government agreed to take the young boy in and operate to save his life. And thank God for the doctors that did it. But let me share something with you. In order to save his life, they had to sign a statement that their son fell from a bicycle. And Gideon Levy, he saw it for himself, and he said, how low do we have to stoop in propaganda? You see, let me say this. I say this with sincerity to Prime Minister Netanyahu, to any other of my people that are in the government, including Rabbi Yehuda Glick. Let me just say to you, my brethren there, and the sisters that are in power as well. This is not the way Moshe, our prophet, Hanavi, the prophet of Shel Yisrael, of Israel. This is not the things that he said to us or taught us to do. We are not 3,500 years ago when we were dealing with the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, and all these different Jebusites and Canaanites. We're not dealing with people that are 15, 16 foot tall, dealing with the giants in the land there that need to be destroyed because they've intermingled in with the brought Nephilim seed into this world. Yes, it's in the book of Numbers, by the way. I've shared that many times before. We're not dealing with that situation anymore. So why? Why would we take and go through this? You know how many Palestinian friends I know that have said to me before in Israel, Steve, what happened? Before the Intifada, Gaza was open. Palestinians could come in. We worked in Israel. There was tourism. We were doing well. Little problems here and there. But it wasn't so bad. We could live together and have relatively a decent peace. And then the Intifada come. Yeah, Rome was in behind there pushing the Intifada. And when they signed the agreement, if you go back and read Joel Beinerman, another Israeli journalist that was killed for what he said because he was uncovering the plot that Shimon Peres was signing a secret deal with then the Pope of Rome, John Paul II, and Yasser Arafat to make a two-state solution. You know how many people that lost their lives in politics because they weren't going to play the game and Shimon Peres killed them? Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't say that here either, but I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you just like it is. Barry Chamish, Barry was a good friend of mine. I love Barry. He's been on Israeli News Live a couple of times. He always tried to get me on his program. I regret not going on. I really do, because Barry was always writing me. I can show you the emails one day. Steve, come on. I want to talk to you about this. And it wasn't that I didn't want to come on with Barry. I just never could find the time to do it. But Barry told me, he said that when Yitzhak Rabin was shot, he said he would have never died from the gunshot wound that he received from the assassin. But he ended up with another mysterious gunshot wound after he got in the car with Shimon Peres on the way to the hospital. That's a lot like the Kennedy assassination. It wasn't just Oswald. You know, Oliver Stone is the only man that I've ever seen to truly put a spotlight as far as in the entertainment world. When he did the movie JFK about Jim Garrison. And Jim Garrison was closer than any of them on what really happened. God bless that man, Jim Garrison, for what he did. I even know one of the men that was on the Warren Commission. Yeah, I bet the government would love to know what I know, wouldn't you? Well, they already know what really happened. They just don't want you to know what really happened. Moving along, guys. Russian foreign minister says U.S. failed to fulfill obligation regarding withdrawal from the Tanf zone, the Al-Tanf area. That was something that they agreed upon when the Russians and the Syrians were working together to take the southern part of Syria there and right down to the Quneitra area. And the U.S. had worked with Israel on standing down while they took back this whole region there. But then the U.S. had promised to withdraw from Al-Tanf. They were going to move over to the other side of the other side of the Euphrates River, but they never did. And Russia is planning on taking that area back, and the U.S. is still moving in massive amounts of troop and equipment in there, even as we speak now. So I do believe, as I said, Daniel 11 is fixing to unfold right before our eyes. Also, we have too, Russia had to swallow the deal in Idlib, says the Haaretz here, that then came an Israeli strike on Syria. Amos Harel brought out this right here in this article here, and I'm not going to go much into it. I'll post it in the description later. But Putin did. He had to take a big swallow there and stop that fight there. And why did Putin do it? Putin is trying to bring about a peace as well. Putin doesn't want an all-out war with NATO. I mean, if there's ever a man, and I don't say Putin, I don't doubt a bit in the world, is just as much involved in knowing what the New World Order is and going on as any of these other world leaders. But he cares about his own people. This man here does drills with his nation to put them in bunkers when a nuclear war comes because he knows it's coming. What has our country done for us? They certainly don't put us in bunkers, and they ain't built none for us either, only for the elite class. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. They built the FEMA camps. You're right. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot all about it. Thank you guys for reminding me of that. I'm sure somebody out there said that just probably as a good little joke. But I'll tell you something, though, about those FEMA camps, too. Isn't it interesting that we have Israeli officers training our Homeland Security how to run our FEMA camps? Doesn't that strike you as a bit odd? It's very odd. You know, if I knew that there was an Israeli that was training my FEMA camp people here in America on how to deal with us Americans when the time comes of a national calamity here, I wouldn't trust them not a single bit. I would know they're part of the deep state that wants to destroy the American people. I would know that that's the type of people that want to see this nation disarmed and all of us end up in concentration camps as sort of a payback, you know, for what happened during the Holocaust. Let me tell you something, I don't go for that. And I lost a lot of family in the Holocaust. I've got stacks of Yad Vashem records of my family members that died in the Holocaust. So I know exactly what I'm talking about on this. We're almost done, guys. Netanyahu at odds with Trump over the two-state solution. Well, yeah, I'm sure he is at odds with him. He don't like what just happened. Day after President Trump explicitly endorsed a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict during a speech at the UN General Assembly meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells NPR he disagrees. For Netanyahu, the conflict solution must involve Israel remaining in complete control of security. Now, that doesn't mean that a two-state solution is not still going to be done, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to allow Israel to have the security control, but they're still going to do a two-state solution. And in fact, this whole war that they're going to do in the Middle East and cause the deaths of thousands of Israelis will force the Israeli people to accept the two-state solution. I have said this for years, that is something that is going to happen. And as far as the two-state solution, how many of you, and if you're there watching on the live broadcast now, how many of you have sit there and listened when John Kerry came up with the 9-month negotiations for the two-state solution? Not the same moment he started it. I forget, maybe 2 months before it was getting time for that negotiation to come to an end. God put in my heart and revealed to my heart, this was a fulfillment of the prophecy of Rebekah. In fact, Paul Bagley had me on his program to discuss that very issue. I went on with Brother Paul and I was discussing there on his program and he was trying to pin me down. Do you think they're going to have a two-state? Because I know, Steve, you talked about that, when Rebekah, when she was having the two children in her womb, it was Esau and Jacob, and they were wrestling in the womb, and God had revealed to me that that the reason why John Kerry's 9-month negotiation, it was a parallel to the prophecy. Because I said, what did Rebekah say? She doesn't go ask her husband. She doesn't go ask Isaac. She goes straight to God herself and says, why am I thus? Why are these children fighting in my womb? And God says to her, there are two manners of people in your womb. There are two nations, he says, in your womb. And when they come forth, they shall be separated. And God revealed to me then that John Kerry's 9-month negotiation was a type of that birth of the two children. Now, here's where some have made a mistake, because there's many people have heard that message that's been passed from one ear to another ear to another ear, and now ministers are sharing it, and people don't even have any idea where it first started at. That doesn't matter. Thank God they can share it. But most ministers that mess up on the revelation is they think that the negotiation, that the two-state solution was the Palestinians and the state of Israel, the Jewish people. That's not the two-state solution. That's only what you get before your eyes. And when they did that article, how many times you guys just thumbs up it? If you know it in there in the chat room, thumbs up, let people know you've heard it many times already. When John Kerry, they came out, I think it was on the New York Times, said that the two-state solution ended in disaster. They didn't come to a deal. And I remember when I was on with Brother Begley, he was trying to get me, I know how I love them, brother. He's just trying to get me to say it. Say it, brother. You believe they're going to do it? I said, I don't know. Because God didn't reveal to me the rest of it. But when it collapsed, the next thing that happened within 30 days, Pope Francis goes to Israel on Mount Zion in the upper room. He has the communion. I said the two-state solution was a success. You have to understand, what were they trying to do? What was Shimon Peres doing in 1993 and 1993 and 1994 with Pope John Paul II and Yasser Arafat? They were working on a two-state solution deal, but the whole point was that the Vatican was to get certain things. This is what it's about. The Palestinians, as Daniel says, that Esau would come up strong, the king of the north comes up strong with a small people. That's the Palestinians. You Palestinian friends, you were used by Rome in order for them to get the two-state solution. Then Mount Zion was handed over to the Pope of Rome. He got 60% of the land of Israel went to the Vatican. They reestablished all back what the Vatican had before Israel ever became a state. And still there's one last thing to do, and that is to make sure that the Pope of Rome gets the old city and the United Nations force will be put there. The only way they can do it, and I've said it back then, I'll say it again, they're going to have a major war here in the Middle East. It's going to affect my people in Israel, and when the people have lost their lives, then they'll be easier. They can bring in that United Nations force. Because what will happen when the war is going on, and if Israel starts getting attacked, then they'll incite the Palestinians to gang into this fight as well. And then there will be need for a United Nations force. That's how they can get the Israeli people to accept the change. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. Right? Now, I want to show something to you. This isn't back then, but I want to show you about that two-state solution. Now, this is from the video I did January 14th, 2016 with Simon Tov, and this is where Simon Tov talks about a two-state solution that's already been done. Because in 94, Shimon Peres got the agreement and Yasser Arafat agreed to a two-state solution as long as the Vatican got what they wanted. And Barry Chamish, Joel Bainerman, Israeli journalists were constantly exposing that the Pope would get Jerusalem, the old city that is. Nobody ever believed it. Shimon Peres denied it, even though they intercepted his own wire that was going to the Vatican. He says, I meant to say, you're not going to get it. You lying. Oh my gosh, he was a liar. All right? I want you to hear, though, I'm talking to Simon Tov on an interview in Jerusalem 2 years ago, and Simon Tov, first time, tells about that secret deal that was done with Ariel Sharon, where it was already signed. Because the reason I was talking to Simon Tov about this, I was watching the infrastructure. I saw the rail system being built from the airport up to Jerusalem. I was watching, I'd photographed for years all the major highways coming from different parts of the country right to Jerusalem. Where's all the money for the construction coming from? They were making ready for a two-state solution. Not to mention for the Silk Road and the, That's, by the way, what Trump means about a regional approach. That's a different issue altogether. Listen to this right here. Let me blow up the screen so you can see and hear. To force a two-state solution, something that you cannot force upon the Israeli people, but the infrastructure has already gone in. Who gave that? Who gave the command for this infrastructure? Where did that come from? And how do you perceive any of these things here that have happened here in the last several years?
Without mentioning names, but several years ago, I was at a Bible study, and we got a phone call. And it was a woman that was a very close aide to Ariel Sharon. She was weeping uncontrollably on the telephone. And after a few minutes, finally calmed her down and said, "What's going on?" She said, "I've just been in the boardroom in the Knesset, and there was a number of dignitaries from the United States, from a number of countries in Europe, and they just essentially agreed to a division of the state of Israel and Jerusalem. And it's
It was signed by the Prime Minister and all of these different people. And I don't know if it's important, all the names right now, because I don't want to jeopardize anybody's life. But I'll tell you, there was something put in place at that time, and I've watched, like I just explained to you, I've watched the infrastructure begin to be put in place. People are saying there will never be a Palestinian state. I'm sorry, it's already here.
Yes.
We've got Palestinian police in Jerusalem. We've got signs that me, a Jew, am not allowed to go into the most Jewish cities in the world. Bethlehem, Shechem, Jericho. If I come to those places, there's a big sign there in red saying you're not allowed in here and you could be killed. So is there a Palestinian state being assembled? You'd have to be actually retarded not to say yes, because it's there. It's in...
Well, you know, Shimon Tov, this is what I have been saying all along. The state... So as you can see, back in 2016 on this interview here, that's been getting close to 3 years ago now. I think that's 2016, June 14th. So it's been 2 years, a little over 2 years ago, not 3 years ago. This was already a done deal. And so I want to bring up one other thing in closing, guys, and then we're going to close. This is something that I hear so much about. People talk about a Psalm 83 war. Psalm 83 is not a war. Psalm 83 is a confederacy. And I'm bringing this up in closing because this is what's happening today. If you look at it, it says, O God, keep not silence, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. This is Israel asking God for his mercy. For lo, your enemies are in an uproar, and they that hate you have lifted up the head. That's their leader. Okay? Nasu rosh. Now again, remember, I've said this to you guys many times before. Nasu is also, besides lift up, it's also the word married. They've married their head. That's Rome. That was a covenant they made with Rome. All right? They hold crafty converse against thy people. All right? And take counsel against thy not treasured ones. That's an incorrect translation as well. All right? Where are we at? Okay. Against al-sufanecha, your hidden ones. All right? Now that crafty converse in the Hebrew language, it's like sitting at a council meeting. They're meeting about your people. What to do? What are you going to do with the Jews? How are you going to deal with this? We're going to make a two-state solution. So how are we going to do it? And then they also have to figure out what to do with these hidden ones, which I believe are the witnesses. Right? Now listen, I'll tell you why. What would they need to take any counsel for if someone's hidden, if they're not coming back? I remember Chuck Missler. Dr. Chuck Missler, he asked me when I was at Coeur d'Alene there, at his place there, when we were doing the filming for the documentary on the book I wrote, Yam Suf. Chuck was part of that, and Chuck asked me, we're walking down the hallway, and he said, Steve, who do you think these hidden ones are that is spoken of in the book of Psalms? You know, and I didn't tell Chuck at the time because I didn't know, but one day the Lord revealed it to me within about a 2-month period there, and I wrote Chuck a letter, and I said, Chuck, he thought it was the raptured saints. I said, it's not. It's your two witnesses. I said, because regardless of what you think on rapture, for it, not for it, here, there, whenever, that doesn't make any difference in my opinion there. The point is, if God was taking out his people and hiding them away, they're not coming back. There's no reason to take any counsel about them. These are already hidden. They're taking a counsel about someone that's already hidden. And how are we going to deal with it? It's nobody else but the two witnesses. Because they know they got to deal with that when they come. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. All right? Now, for they have consulted together with one consent. Against thee do they make a covenant. Who does it? The tents of Edom, which is the Romans, and the Ishmaelites, the Moabs, the Hagarites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also has joined with them. They have been an arm to the children of Lot, Selah. Now what's interesting, to me, this is something that's already come to pass. When me and my wife covered, when Obama was still in office, and they were having the United Nations meeting, when all the nations came together, and the Vatican was even pushing for this, and they went against Israel, that's when they were making this to try to cut off Israel as being a name and no more in remembrance. So, what is it? It's a covenant. It's a conspiracy to go against Israel. That's what that is. But God, just like in the case of the violent ones among the house of Judah, that are trying to also establish divisions all over the world, they're going to stumble. None of them will be fully successful. Will they go in there and kill a lot of people in the process? Yes, they will. Sure they will. This is the danger of it all. Anyway, I've held you guys for a long time, almost an hour now. I apologize for holding you so long. But anyway, God bless you. I just want to say hello to everyone, and really I want to take the time. I want to thank these wonderful moderators, the sisters that are always there to kind of make sure things are handled correctly. And every once in a while, somebody will send me a message and say, "Steve, I made this comment and they blocked my comment." Listen. I've asked them to really look out for people, and sometimes things do get cut off in there that maybe you don't mean anything by it or anything like that, and maybe it was a good comment. I've actually had some that I've approved later in the actual, when it's posted on our in the comments below. But these sisters are doing a good job, and they're trying to make sure that nothing creeps in that's not good. Because some people, they use the chat room just as a social room there, and they probably didn't hear half of what I said, which sometimes I kind of hate that. I'd rather them really hear what we're talking about. So anyway, but there are things that go on in there that are not good. But anyway, God bless you. Thank you for watching this evening, and please, if you would, if what you hear, if you really appreciate truth, won't you take the time to stand with our broadcast here? I want to just, I'll take and let me just see if we can find it on here. We've also our address here where you can help support this broadcast. We do need your help, friends. We need your help, and I just want to. Whoop! This looks terrible right here. The way it used to come up normal here, but it's not coming up very normal now. But any rate, this is our address here on the screen. Didn't come up the way it normally comes up, but that's all right. Doesn't matter. You can support by mailing us at Dunoon Institute, 8297 Champions Gate Boulevard, number 442, Champions Gate, Florida, 33896. Or just go on our website, IsraeliNewsLive.org. And we appreciate tremendously your support and help because it's a tremendous undertaking, and of course also the conferences and stuff that we're working on. Let me just share with you though real quick again about the conference. I'll type it in right here for you real quick. Israeli, Israeli News Live. You can do .co.il or .org, either which way you want to do. If you go to .co.il, it'll take you right to our website as well. We're registered in Israel as a news site as well. But right when you get to our website here, if you go right there, you'll notice here on the screen here, I'll just kind of get out of the way, it says Pensacola Conference. We've already got 4 comments in here. And we also have, we do have a website that you'll be able to register on the Kansas Conference. That I was saying is going to be live today. I was talking to our web guy. It'll actually be tomorrow morning his time. He's over in Europe when that will be up. But anyway, this coming weekend on Sunday, we do have a conference in Pensacola, Florida. So if you would like to attend, click on that on our website, Pensacola Conference. It's 12 noon to 8 p.m. My wife, myself will both be speaking. There's 4 messages. We will have one little dinner break for about an hour and a half for people to grab something to eat. There'll be coffee and water served there as well. We are limited to only 50 people. So it's very limited. I don't like charging a registration fee, but because, again, when we do this, if people register for free, then I have to tell people it's closed, nobody else can come. The next thing you know, maybe only 30 people will be there, and then 20 seats were left open when somebody else would have liked to have come, and I had to turn them away. So we do have a $20 registration fee. That'll help cover the cost of the event and just a little bit of expenses that we have on getting there, etc. So that's what that's for there. But anyway, at any rate, the way you would do it, if you follow the instructions, it's at the Holiday Inn Express, Pensacola, Florida, at 130 Loblolly Lane. All right, I've got the hotel is just hyperlinked. You can click on it, get more of their information, but their phone number is there if you need directions. They have a few rooms left from what I understood. It's $119 a night for 2 queen beds, etc. $99 a night on Sunday night, but Saturday is a little bit more expensive, they told me. And also I noted on here, very detailed instructions. Please read if you're planning on coming. I need for you to make a comment on the article that you're coming. And then when you go to donate, what's going to happen is it says here the donate button, which if you just click on that, it takes you straight to the part where you can donate. But then it asks you the question, add special instructions to the seller. I asked to put in there Pensacola Conference because people normally, when they come on, a lot of times people donate $10, $20, things like that to help with the ministry. And we don't know who's who. So unless I can match it with you've made it there, even if you didn't put a comment that you're coming in the comment section, and I can see that you've already done it in the donation part of our donation part, as long as you put Pensacola Conference, then I know you're coming and everything will be okay. But I've asked for people to make the comments though, and the reason being is I need to be able to match the names there with those that are actually already made the donation to be able to be there. So I appreciate that. We thank you. Looking forward to getting to meet you as you come there. And we're very excited about it. So we'll be there probably about an hour early, just getting set up. And I got a lot of work to set up. So if you happen to get there, just bear with me. I won't be able to say a whole lot until we get things set up there, but I know it will be a blessing to many of you that are coming. You're going to learn a lot of things, and you'll understand too why we make the stand we make. There's a lot of things that we know, we just have never said here. Trying to keep the channel on air is why. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you for watching. I am sorry for being so long today. I didn't mean to go this long on here. But pray for us. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for our people in Israel. Pray that their eyes will come open. Pray for those believers over there that are witnessing to our people over there. And if you're traveling there, be a light. Be a love of Christ for my people that they can recognize Christ in you. You know, your life will speak louder than words. And believe me, the last thing we need though is patting us on the back for blowing up all our neighbors. We don't need that. I do support Israel's right to defend themselves. I'm not saying that I don't. I do. Israel does have a right to defend themselves from exterior threats. But I'm afraid that our government is bringing more of that upon us than what we should. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.